Hello everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and I decided randomly to start doing my camera testing after I already started the stream, but it looks like it's going good. I'm going to be hanging out today and painting up some of my flesh eater quartz. This is all part of me recording footage for a painting tutorial I'm going to do. I think I'm initially going to put it up for members of the channel, but essentially how to create the super simple hollow morn skin style that I showed off on all of my flesh eater quartz preview things on Instagram, here on Facebook. There's a bunch of pictures. And so what it really was is I had the battle tome early, thank you GW, and I looked at the hollow morn skin tutorial in there, and it said to paint it like with gray seer, prime it, and then paint the whole model with Ideneth Deepkin flesh tone, and then a contrast paint. And I'm like, this is so many base layers. We have to be able to cut this down. And so I actually used the green from, this is Necrotic or Necromantic, I can't remember which word it is, Flesh from Army Painter. It's their very, very light green primer. And I just did that, and then a layer of Griff Charger Gray, which is the color they used in the Battle Tome tutorial, and they look fantastic. Like no joke. If you grab a bottle of the Army Painter that I'm talking about and the matching like dropper bottle, so you can, you know, touch up mistakes and stuff like that, you could do really well. And then if you want to go further, you could actually mix in some like 1-to-1 ratio of like a flesh tone and use that as your highlight, and these things look terrific. So we'll go back to the downward cam here. And here we are. We have some lo-fi covers playing. If you can't hear or it's too loud, either direction, just let me know. And let me get everything set up here. Boom, let there be light. All right. This, let me get one of my crap brushes that I do all my contrast stuff with. Like this guy, because you can kind of pool things in certain places, which is the whole point, I think. Well, it's certainly a strength when it comes to contrast. For you, first try, that's never happened before. Is it Samagina? Man, I was gonna go to bed, but I got more lads to paint, and now this is gonna make me start. Oh, well, hey. Don't do anything irresponsible, but if you're already up, yes, grab out your brushes. Let's hang out. I'm gonna start really simply with just a quick, actually, I'm gonna go with that lighter brush, get some more coverage. These guys are big. I was using smaller brushes on ghouls. What is everybody else working on as I'm starting this off? One thing that caught me by surprise, and also several people over on, I shared these on Reddit, was that the Griff Charger Gray doesn't look like it would have a lot of like blue and green hints in there, but it actually is full of it. It's somewhere between Null Oil and Colia Green Shade. And I've owned it forever, and I had never taken the time to be like, oh yeah, let's actually play with this color. I think I used it for one thing, and I was like, it's not the gray I was looking for. And then I just never touched the pot again. I'm sure we all have paints like that. Let's see. So what I've got in front of me, as I'll just keep chatting about my little collection here. So I have the full box that GW sent out painted. That's been all over the interwebs. Actually, if you want to see some good pictures of it, Goonhammer, for their Flesh Eater Quartz review, used several of my pictures, and I was just very happy. I reached out and I was like, hey, I know I guys, I promote your guys' site, but like I've never like actually contributed, and I have these things painted. It's like, I have model. Does anyone have blog? And they were all super nice about it. And just to know, when you're doing, if you do contrast over any of these Army Painter skins, or any Army Painter primers skins, tones, the color will kind of fade and change a bit as it dries. So really all we're looking for is that it's not pooling on any higher places, because that's what we're gonna want to keep that to the shadows. Get, first of all, it's the best username ever. Hi, Doug. Nearly time to stop work so I can grab my brushes and finish up Hunter and Hunted city models. Nice. That's fantastic. I had those. I ended up offering them to my friend Brent, mainly just because he has use for them. But I was like looking at those hunters for the cities, and I was like, man, these guys are so stinking cool. Ugh. I feel like that's one of, you know how with like Warcry kits, right? Because that was a box that came out in support of Warcry. It feels like some of them were made to be real full units in AOS, and some of them they just don't. Like, for example, I don't feel like the Daughters of Cain one is a it's really good in the army. But I mean, like, as far as like lore wise of the unit, it seems like it would make sense that there's like maybe one of them. But like the Hunter kit, it just seems like a regular unit that also has everything you'd ever want for a Warcry. Kind of like how Kill Team Marines are the Space Marines in Kill Team, right? Like that comparison of, yeah, they're technically the same thing, but they're not really. Not in this format. Not when you're talking Kill Team. Okay, go back, check for pooling. Yeah, gotta get those butt cheeks clear. All right. So we can dirty them up with a different color later. That's, of course, the point. But I was all in. When they sent me this box, well, first they sent me like a copy of just some flavor text. They're like, hey, we're sending these things out soon. And it was just, all I had was box. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but I'm very excited. And then everything, that's kind of in between that is when everything got revealed. And so I was like, oh my gosh. Yes, please. Yes. Plenty of color around the eyes. Jordan Fletcher, I love Warcry and Underworld's warbands. Do the fleshing out for the Warcry factions can diversify. Yes, I agree. I don't know how well those games sell, like individually, like Warcry and Underworlds. I can't fathom. I don't know. I don't know how big they are. I'm not going to make wild guesses. I feel like they have to be smaller than AOS in terms of their communities and support and stuff like that. But certainly in terms of like having an ancillary way to deliver random units and stuff without having to do the whole battle tome thing and, you know, relaunch a whole faction or an army. It's like, nah, just get a couple of guys who look a little different and they do generally the same thing that the rest of the faction does. I'm in. I'm here for that. That's called an option. Let's see. Robbie, Doug is big obsessed with the new Flesh Eater Courts release. Oh, I very much am. Yes. So if you don't know, this was actually... Well, I think I may have said it in one of the videos. I recorded those like almost a week and a half ago now, so... I'm a little hazy on the first one, specifically, but... it's special to me because it was the first faction I did coverage of. It really was the faction that came out in AOS 1 before points. And I was just like, guys, there's something here. Like, this game seems cool. They took an existing model range, gave it a whole new story. And they had done that, I think, with Plant Pestilence by then, maybe? The initial order is kind of hard to remember. They did come out pretty fast and heavy there initially. But, no, I had a lovely wife read the opening lore kind of blurb from the book in that first video that's in the Flesh Eater Court playlist. Also, someone asked me, so are you going to get rid of those old Flesh Eater Court movies? Nope. They are part of history. That is my equivalent of keeping your oldest model so you can see how far you've come. You're all stuck with it. Anyway, so yes, we had her read the lyrics, and that was really when things started taking off. So I do have a connection to it. When the second book came out, that really was like, oops, all Gristlegore for a while there. That's kind of like, I never owned them before, but that's certainly where I lost interest. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna. Right, when those things started coming out leaking, I was like, that just doesn't sound like it for me. And I think what sold it for me was all the heroes that they added. It was just a faction that was built for heroes like Slaanesh is, but it didn't have them like Slaanesh does. And so, yeah, now I feel like it has quite a few, at least reasonable options. I know people used to be annoyed, or they still can be, by the idea of like internally kit bashing to create your courtiers. So like, to create a courtier, a sub-hero of this dude, I need to combine bits of a haunter and a flayer. And, I'm sorry, a horror and a flayer. And people didn't like that, because it means you're always building at least one fewer model out of the kit, and then you have an incomplete unit. Totally understand that, that's dumb. But I like the idea that you could, kit bash internally. That, I think, is a strong idea for a GW to pursue. But anyway, now that they have all these new heroes, that like the Gore Warden, what's the other going? The Volgroth Courtier, just being different than he was. Like, oh man, they're so good. GT Mafia, can we ask lore-related questions? Oh yes, please ask anything. And if you don't like the topic we're on, a tip in the tip jar lets you steer the wheel, and you can basically ask any question you want. If, like I said, conversation is not to your liking. But yes, please ask any questions. Honestly, having stuff to talk about kind of helps this not be boring. But, I mean, I'm applying a flat layer contrast to a bunch of huge models. It's not the height of excitement already, is what I'm saying. So having a little nice conversation might be helpful. Rob, I'm loving the hook in one of your latest videos involving Neferata and manipulating the flesh eater quartz. Yeah, something I try whenever there are characters and stuff like that came from the old world. I want to know what Games Workshop writes about them in their current battle tone, rather than going through. I wasted so much time doing history stuff for Archaon that I got all wrong, and it was just horrible to source information from the old world, and so I just skipped it. But I legitimately did not know that was like Neferata's brother. Like, Ushuren is... yeah. Or like half-brother, but you know what I mean? Like, they're from the same era. I thought he came much later in the old world's lore, but people in the comments were super helpful, and nobody was a douche about it, which is kind of nice. One of my early mistakes as a creator was doing a video like the old world. So basically, how do we get from the old world to here, Age of Sigmar? And I got everything wrong. I got every location wrong for all the different factions. I think I said that the what did I say? Lizard people were in Africa rather than South America, or something like that. It was whatever it was. It was backwards. I don't know. That was fun. That was fun. That was a fun comment section for a while. It was spicy. Okay. No, hey Doug, I just bought a Flesh Eater Court army box. Cannot wait to get them. Nice. What kind of list are you thinking of building? Off the top of my head, I've been looking at a lot of, obviously, Hallowmorn, because the color scheme I liked and I wanted to paint. I like the green hue to all the skin. But as far as lists go, I'm sticking, I think, with... a bunch of horrors. I want to have a good-sized blob of ghouls in case I want them, but I'm not also in a rush to paint like 40 ghouls. And I think 40 is where I'll max out, because honestly, anything more than that, I don't care how effective it is. I don't want to move that many models. Right? Like, I'm cool with one big blob whose whole job is to just go sit on an objective, because you maybe move them for a turn or two, and then you're done. And then it's just a matter of pulling off the dead as they get sniped or charged or whatever. But man, I tell you, I had at one point 60 plague monks on the table. Nope. This has ceased to be fun. We're just being real sloppy with the wings because we know we're going to come back over and paint those a different color anyways. Who cares? Hey Doug, any plans for more Torch and Shield content? Yes, actually, I have the stuff primed. It's been a mix of travel days for me and helping family with medical stuff, so I live in central Iowa, and we've had a few days where it's been like nice and 40, nice and 40. Sub-zero 20 degrees, your painting is not going to work at all. Screw you, you had hobby plans, go to hell. And that's basically the weather. But I did manage yesterday to get everything primed, and so I'm all set to go there. I do want to do some painting. I was planning to do that when I was doing my live week, and then life had other plans for me. But yes, I am. And I'm actually working on some of those pictures I shared of the Flesh Eater Courts, the background and stuff like that, the little town center vignette thing that I was doing. That was intended to be... I built that little setup, 2x2 scene, as both a backdrop for my Flesh Eater Courts, but also a way to test camera capabilities, angles, and lighting for battle reports. Because I want to do the Warcry ones that I did before, or style, not the game Warcry necessarily, but that style, where it's a mixture of solid pictures and video with a narrative retelling of what's happening. And the idea is like a battle report in 15 to 25 minutes. So yeah, that's the idea anyway. We'll see how well it goes. But I've just been dialing in the setup. Yesterday I got a fog condenser thing in the mail, so I can have some cool smoky effects for beauty shots. I really like the flayers in 2nd edition, but I'm going to try Hollowmorn lists with horrors to rep Ushuran. Yeah, I liked the idea of horrors more. I mean, I just like big 3-man units of crush and power and AOS. Bulgors, whatever the Slaves to Darkness thing is, Minotaurs, all those kinds of stuff. I'm here for it. But they just never had the gas in the engine the same way that flayers always did, or at least consistently did. I won't say always. It's almost 60 down here in Missouri. The mindset of not wanting to move so many models is why I steer away from Skaven. Too many bodies. Yeah, and that's one of those things that, like, it's hard to tell new people, like, to explain that as a negative to an army in a way that they'll understand, of like, no bro, if you have not moved this many painstaking models across the table, try that before you buy this faction. Just stand there when I'm playing and move all my models for me and see how much fun you have. And the last guy, I'm just gonna snag the dragon up top here. Or not dragon, the rider. And if you saw my Morbeg Knights, I kind of do a purpley skin on the creatures. I'm gonna do more of a gray faded than the more bright lilac that I did on the other ones, just because Terrorgeist is undead. Oh yeah, lore tidbit, since it's not really well said in the book. Does anybody want to know what those little bat things are they ride? Those are the Morbeg Knights. What happens is when a ghoul comes into an area, they sniff out every cave and whatever nearby, which makes sense. You know, looking for food, they're hangry. Well, sometimes they find caves full of huge bats, just like the giant bat models from Ulfenkarn or whatever the city was. And just like a tiny little man is turned into a big boy with the application and eating of an aberrant's blood, they do the same thing. They feed his blood to the bats. And if you look at, like, I don't have one near me right now, but if you look at the structure of the bat, it looks like a horror who's in pouncing mode with bat features mixed in. So they're just mutants. And then very rarely, sometimes ghouls will have delusions that allow them to basically function as knights. They can actually sit on something, ride it into battle. Yeah. Let's see. All these guys. Okay, so that is done. Let me put my Griff Charger Gray back. So while that is drying, I'm going to go through and paint out the little tufts of hair, fur. They're kind of fur. I'm going to call it fur. Color for that. I'll show it to you. Yeah, I used Vallejo Gray Green as the base. Because it just looks like normal gray here, but the second you apply it to these guys, some of that little green starts to poke through, and it's real nice. If you can give flesh eater court blood to any animal, the possibilities are endless. Indeed, they are. And oh wait, in the book, at some point they mentioned an undead maw crusher. Like it was just kind of flippantly, kind of like how they quote unquote mentioned Sky Pirate Grots, kind of a thing, where it's just this casual mention that you're like, okay, so now it's technically canon. It could exist. Who's gonna be the nerd to kit bash that? But yes, there's a series of animals that you could feed. I mean, also I want to know, that makes me... I start asking the Doug questions, like how do we game this? I'm like, okay, so if an aberrant ghoul king goes and just bleeds all over the shore, how much of that blood can or will affect an Idnith Deepkin eel? I'd say that in jest. Probably nothing, but you know what I mean, of just like, okay, we got the magic system, let's break it. Let's make GW wish they never thought of a cool idea. It's basically how that seems to pan out. They'll regret having ideas altogether. A ghoul crusher would be sick? Oh yeah. I was hoping Morbeg Knights were mutated ghouls. That's what I love about the Offal Hounds. Yeah, they are pretty cool. I actually have not gotten a set of those yet. I want to. We have a few stores locally that I think might have the old Crypt Warcry band. No, Underworld's Warband. There we go. I'm trying to find a set of those because they seem interesting. Just for alternate sculpts. Getting all those little butt fur flaps. Yep, gotta get those. I wonder what happened if an orc drinks flesh eater court blood. I don't know. You might just get a bellyache. I feel like that's like one of those Games Workshop isms that would be, I don't know, like if it was 40k and that was the question, they'd be like, the orc just seemed to burp and didn't care much for the Space Marine brew. Like it was pretty much just that, I'd imagine. Throck Keg Smasher says, Flesh Eater Court wine sucks. Your vineyards are bad and you should feel bad, says Ghoul King, as he reviews and leaves a Yelp for a Hammer Hall restaurant. I mean, a ghoul-eyed Nithdeepkin army would probably look like the trench from Aquaman. I actually did not see that. I gave up on all superhero movies. You're all cowards until I get my Jubilee movie. Man angrily screams at Disney. I don't know if this particular group has heard me, but I like to say it all the time anyway because it makes me laugh. My favorite X-Men, I've always said, if I could be one of them, I would be Jubilee. And people are like, why would you want to be Jubilee? She's useless. I'm like, that's the point. If X-Men became real, Jubilee is awesome because, one, she can hide in plain sight. Like, nothing about her mutates her. And she's powerful. She can be used to cause havoc with all the fireworks and the plasmoids and destruction, that kind of stuff. But also, she's not powerful. No one's calling like, oh my god, we would really be able to solve this situation if only we had Jubilee. No. She's at home, on the couch, eating potato chips. Where I also often find myself. Let's see. Corey Bragg, the Flesh Eater Court Warcry band is really top notch. In the design article by GW, they said they were harbingers for the new stuff, and they had fun in the design space. Nice. Keg Smasher going on a beer tour. Oh, that would be amazing. Yes. Oh yeah, we could have like campaign missions called like the Great Stein Hunt or something like that. The Battle of Kegerator 4. You could do all kinds of missions. Hops collecting. I'm gonna save the vampire bat. He's kind of too big to kind of lump in with the rest of these. Karaz, are you going for a Gristlegore scheme? No, Gristlegore is kind of like a dark purple. This is Halamorn. They're the ones who kind of have the slight green. I'm gonna make it less green here, but that's kind of the idea they got. Sweet. Okay, we are just drying up. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn the fan on up ahead. There we go. All right. Hopefully that'll keep things drying a little bit faster so we can keep bouncing back. Alright, so let's see what is next for us in our intrepid painting. Looks like pretty soon we're going to be ready to do some dry brushing. Horrors, I'm just making sure the contrast that's at least facing upward is dried. It looks like it is, so. Here it is, necrotic flesh, that's the name of the color. A bit of that. Style of Bob Ross. What the heck? Let's go crazy. All of my flesh tones are missing. It's like the only scale 75 color I have, and so I kind of lose their their lid. Who says flesh eater courts are limited to just humans? Yes, no, absolutely. Nothing says they are. Well, anymore anyway. So I'm gonna throw down some necrotic flesh. Basic flesh. And so now we're adding a little bit of brightness, just a dash of skin tone to it all. Once it fully mixes in, the green is going to eat this right up. He says confidently, becoming less confident by the second. I'm gonna add, maybe I needed to do 2 to 1 rather than 1 to 1. There we go. As with most things, if you just say it confidently enough, it'll work out for a time. But that's why you act fast. Gotta be that tap dancing fool who like knows just when to be like, and they're just about to realize I'm a fool. Question, so if you dropped Gloom Spite and moved completely to Feck? No, actually, just off camera here to the left, I got a whole bunch of Gloom Spite. So what happened was, I was supposed to go to an event and play Gloom Spite. My good buddy who sent me those trogs who were going to be a part of that list, that stuff didn't arrive in time, and so I ended up not going to the event. So it kind of just sat on my back burner. It just took a while to get here. But barring that little baggie I just showed you, or those few models that I have right here, I didn't really show you all. It's what, 6 trogs, a dank hold or whatever. That's about all I have. Everything else, like, I didn't drop it or get rid of them. They're here. They're painted. I just was waiting on some key reinforcements. Really, we're just worried about the top of the arms and the body. Everything else, I don't really care much. Have you been live long? What am I at? 30 minutes? So, no. Terribly long anyway. If anyone has questions for me, please go ahead. As always, if you toss a coin in the tip jar, it means the world to me. We'll talk about whatever you want for a while, but don't feel like you have to donate to ask a question, please. Oh, wow, $10. Thank you so much. Seminga Doug, I must know, what is the story behind your court? Also, do you think some arborants know of their reality? My homebrew is a ghoul king who uses his delusion as a weapon to make his own army. I think that's awesome. Okay, so I have to go answer the questions one at a time, otherwise I'll get lost and answer neither of them. So what's the story for my personal army? I'm still crafting it, and I would love your guys' help, but essentially I wanted a subsidiary, if you will, of Hollowmorn. I call it Offalmorn, so O-F-F-A-L. And I obviously, I know Ushrin's in Ghiran. I mean, he goes everywhere, but it's kind of like his place that he likes to be. I just have not decided where I want them to be from, which is why even the painted ones aren't based, because I don't quite know what I want. Focus on nightly orders. I only just got these boxes, like these specific units. I've been working with nothing but the new army box that they sent out to me. So like, as much as I like the Gore Warden, I just don't see him as like my leader, so I wasn't really working too hard to write lore, you know, up until then. And then just the other day I was able to grab these suckers and get them built. So I haven't gotten too far. I would love help if anyone has any grand ideas or, you know, cool stories that can be told with simple basing, not too much conversion, because past that, some of these were already built as I got them used, and yeah. So yes, anyway, that's my question, my statement about my court itself is that, yes, they're called the Offalmorn, subsidiary of Hollowmorn, and I don't know where I want them to be from. Probably not Ghiran. I like the idea of courts spreading over long places, so my favorite realm as of right now, like what my mind kind of drifts towards, is I am just really excited to explore the realm of metal. Shimao! Very, very excited for that. Because to me, in AOS 1, when the game first launched, that was one of the locations they dropped everybody off at, and it was just weird. It was weird in ways that the Realm of Fire and Life weren't, and I love it. It was my kind of fantasy. Right? For all the times people say like they really ruined AOS 1's launch, and they did. I'm not going to defend it. I do feel like I was definitely the target audience of like the kind of fantasy that they were going for initially. So I dig that. I love it. I love the crazy, like, alchemical land masses all shifting around, like metaliths, and I don't know. He's cool. So that was the first question. The second one. Also, what do you think some Arborants know of their reality? Oh, so this is an area where you are more than welcome to add whatever you'd like. You could absolutely, I think, given the lore in the current book, current meaning the one you don't have yet, it is completely reasonable for, say, a Ghoul King's whole plan to go out, raise a court quickly, smash it into a city, and then leave them because he doesn't care, and then just repeat. Which would kind of be that same thing, right? He knows at the top level what he's doing, whether or not he's conscious of it enough to feel like morally bad about it. That's your decision. But there are those kinds of vampires that will do that. They'll just come to an area, raise an army, smash something, mosey. Because they're crazy. That's the nice thing about crazy people. They always think they're sane. So you can just have them do crazy things, and it all makes sense. What else? So yeah, I think that definitely exists. As far as what I want my Ghoul Kings, their vision to be, I think I like the idea. There was an old Flesh Eater Court. I think it was a story from one of the older battle tomes. Actually, it might have been the Night Haunt book. But basically, there was a contingent in Night Haunt that was running around aimlessly, and they bumped into a Flesh Eater Court on Crusade. And the Flesh Eater Courts like basically adopted the ghosts because in their delusion they were rescuing refugees, the ghosts, but the ghosts like kept leading them places. So they're like, well, we got to go with these guys to make sure they're safe. And so that's how you get a Flesh Eater Court Night Haunt army roving the wasteland. I was like, oh my god, I love this, because they think they're offering protection, and the ghosts are just not even registering what's happening. Oh, I thought that was such a fun idea. So I like stuff like that. I would love to have the delusion of them generally being good, but that can look like a lot of different things. You know, I'm not hung on to the specifics. Let's see. But let me know if that answers your questions. I definitely think your homebrew lore is awesome, and it definitely makes sense. Especially now that they've introduced that idea of Neferata going around and like just sharing the blood to drive people insane everywhere. Like that's pretty rad. So your Ghoul King could just come into an area, drive a whole city mad, take them to the next city, get everybody killed on both sides, and then walk away just like strutting. Or I imagine the Ghoul King's just standing there once like everyone's dead, there's just corpses on both sides. He's kind of doing the John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, like, okay, everyone's dead, okay, fine, I'll move on. And for the wings, I have here a P3 paint, which I'm going to use. And basically, the way I've been doing these is I take a dark paint like this. Okay, this is Sanguine base, and a bunch of brighter reds. And I'll show you how I do it. It's the exact same thing for skin, but basically base coat them any places you want the wings with the dark. Put some dark on your palette, a couple of drops of these, and then just dab your brush in without really letting them mix too much, and dab that onto the model, and it'll create its own color right there for you. Hola, hola, hola. You think Neferata and Ushura make a power couple? Well, they are related, as I've recently learned out, brother and sister. So, would they? Probably. Is it complicated? Very. Some P3 paints I find are pretty good. Oh my, that is complicated. Very Game of Thrones, exactly, yes. Let's see. I never thought about having Sir Reginald the Honorable be completely against his own name and just leave his army. I absolutely love that, yes. Yeah. Well, my job here is done, and then just like wipes fingers and walks away or whatever. I'm just in these teeny little spaces here in the wings. At some point they were not. Yes, okay. Yes, no, I understand. I understand that they're not like literally. I don't think they are like literally blood relatives or something like that. But yeah. It's, you know, whenever someone asks or someone says like, you can't marry them, they're your sister or your brother, and your response is, well, actually, You're not in a good place. Nobody should say, well, actually, to that. Yeah, technically speaking, you've already lost the conversation. You derailed everything. You get bored, just change it. It's all canon. I could not agree more. Ooh, it's gonna take a while. That's a Nagash type punishment right there. Make them fall hopelessly in love, but also siblings. Morning, Doug. Hanging out with y'all this morning, putting together some Lumineth models. Nice. I don't think I've actually seen a Lumineth player in Iowa. Bowl-shaped. Go for it. By the one, it feels like putting together models takes as long as it does to paint them. I think it takes longer for me personally. I hate building models. I got like the Start Collecting box and the Jared's whatever Courtier group that came out with Dawnbringers. Still haven't built a single one of the ghouls because I'm just like, I don't want to. What's that? My Crypt horrors are now battle line because I'm Hollowmorn. Cool. Yeah, give me a bunch of those. Putting down Harmony, Malarian, and Shadow Elves are going to be the launch for 4th. I don't know, man. I feel... I don't know if I have ever thought GW was that confident in elves ever since the Island of Blood set. Like, that confident that elves are going to be the selling thing. I don't know. It's been a bit. Do you think that they would put 2 order boxes, though? Like 2 order armies in the same one? Because I feel like they would always have Stormcast in the starter set. Doug becomes more and more relatable with every video stream. Hates building models. Oh, yeah, man. You want relatability. Okay, I can do this. I glue everything to the base before I prime it. I hate doing basing. I think Lord of the Rings is overrated. I never watched all of the Harry Potter movies. I'm sure some of you are cringing right now, but others are like, that is relatable. I like Star Wars, but it went down. I mean, I never really picked it up. Past the last of the OG ones with the Vader is born or whatever. My favorite soda is Mr. Pibb. I can only carry 3 things at a time: wallet, keys, and phone. If I try to do anything else besides that, I will inevitably lose one of those original 3 things. What else can I think of? Favorite ice cream is cookies and cream. Yeah. I find your lack of Star Wars disturbing. All right, Corey, I hope you're right. How about that? I hope you are correct. I could definitely see a good argument for Stormcast plus a classic IP, whether that is Gloomspite, whether that is Skaven. Honestly, Korn, I could say classic because it is. I don't know if they're in a relaunch theme like they did with the Tyranid box for 40k. If they're like, oh yeah, people like the old ways, just go backwards. I suspect we'll find out very quick. I think that I would love Skaven as part of the starter box armies, just because I do think it's important to showcase like the different styles of army, and that's one thing I always thought the Night Haunt box for Soul Wars did really well, is like a few Stormcasts and a whole bunch of ghouls. And it's like, yeah, you're not just demonstrating these models or these rules, but what armies can look like, right? Some can be a bunch of little guys, some can be a few big guys, and all points in between. You can have armies with more little guys than the Night Haunt, and you can have armies with fewer big guys than the Stormcast, and you just kind of introduce those ideas. I like that. Well, Corey, if it happens, we should split the box. There we go. Oh, FEC does have a bunch of flying units. Maybe they should get... Oh, bats and zombie hounds? I don't know. I'd be into it. They left the door open for any kind of... I don't know. Because now the lore is established that they can feed Arburnt blood to animals and they'll change. I feel like the most dangerous item a vampire in Age of Sigmar could have is like a copy of zoo books or something. Like just something that illustrates all the different kinds of animals that they could have. My God, he's found the source of information. And we're gonna make a little mess on these wings, but if they wanted them painted better, then they shouldn't have sculpted them so awkwardly. I'm just gonna do a quick edge when it's all done with necrotic flesh. And then we just do a good job on the wings so that nobody looks at all the mistakes. Let's see. One-page rules actually group them all under vampire undead, so you can throw Soulblight Gravelords. Oh yeah, yep. Well, that's what they used to be in Old World. They were just one more option of undead to slightly dead to whatever. mistakes on the wings. I just call them flappy little accidents. There we go. I've always been one of those painters that like, a wash will cover that. That'll buff out, right? That's the equivalent. That's the painter's equivalent of that'll buff out. A wash will cover that little corner area. Nothing to worry about. Figure between this dark red, the layer of colors we're going to put on top of it, wash to bring them together, you'll be able to see stuff. And it'll also hide the stuff I don't want you to. Una más. Groy, that's what they were called. Yes. That'll glaze. That'll glaze. We'll tie it out together. Exactly, yes. Alright, where is this playlist? I need it. Oh, yeah, let me get a link for you. It is... Are you being weird? Hold on, I'm getting the link for you. It's just... Copy link to playlist. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm trying to log in to see if I can get this shared with you. Aha. Anyway, there's the link to it. It's just all lo-fi covers of various songs throughout the era. I also, if you look up a playlist that my wife and I love, like we've just been listening to it on repeat lately, by, I think it's Alien Cake is the name of the producers of it. But it's just 90s grunge lo-fi. So it's like covers of like Nirvana songs, a lot of Foo Fighters. It's just awesome. Hey, you. Been a bit. Yeah. What is everyone working on today? Got a few more folks joining us. And I would love to know everyone's thoughts, because I should probably start with a question. Are there any other factions that have rules like the Delusions for the Flesh Eater Court? So if you don't know, you start the game just like any other faction by picking your allegiance, and let's say I'm Hollowmorn, you get your little rules for your sub-faction or whatever. But on top of that, no matter what sub-faction you play, at the top of the first round, you get to choose a delusion for that game. So this is essentially a reactive thing that's in every Flesh Eater Court player's toolbox, and they all function kind of honestly like another bonus sub-faction rule. So my question is, are there any other factions that do that kind of thing? Like you have a toolbox of choices before each game starts, and you're not bound to one. I know there's some things mid-game that let you spend currency, but that's not currency. That's just like a tithe points or whatever. Because when I read that, it just seemed very good. Like for people who are really into tournament stuff, this that idea of having a built-in Swiss Army knife that you could walk up to the table and be like, what do I need to beat this person, right? But also, the reason why that interested me is for other armies, right? If you look around at an event, you know an army is good if you see a different kinds of lists being played, right? If you go and you see Stormcast, but this table's got a Stormcast, who's all dragons, and this other table has a Stormcast that has like the shooting stuff. This other third one has like Relictor and a bunch of infantry choices because people love Retributors. Like, there's just a whole bunch of different types of Stormcast list, right? That's how you know a book is good. I feel when you go to an event, there's just things people can do with it, and you can play the same faction and have a different experience. It doesn't feel like you're always playing the same exact game over and over and over again, right? What I like about this idea with the Flesh Eater Courts, though, is that you can take, as the Flesh Eater Courts player, your army, and you yourself will never have to play. I'm trying to word this. As a player, not just as the recipient of one, you can change how you play multiple times in a tournament, even if your opponent doesn't. Even if you get a net list 3 times in a row and it's just 3 Stormcast on Dragons lists back to back to back, the game will be different because you can choose different things, different traits, different deployment. I don't know. I like the idea of, like, even if my opponent is net listing or whatever, which is nothing wrong with that, but, like, you go to an event, you don't want to play the same thing over and over again. I can change that. I can make this different. And I feel like for me, who generally speaking, I want to lose round 1 because I want people who are there to win events to go up, and I want me to go down to hang out with the people who are at my caliber, and we're just going to have fun and roll dice. That's nice, because it means that no matter what, it's always in my control, my power, to ensure that, like, my games are different and they're fun and whatever. Hey, just tuned in. How long we've been live for? About an hour. I just wanted to start getting some paint on these guys. I thought, what the heck? Let's flip the camera on, hang out. At some point I'm going to hop off because I told someone on Reddit, I promised them I would do a Path to Glory video for the Flesh Eater Courts because they said nobody else was. I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. Good day, headed to work, Battle Barn. Hey! Heck yes, Path to Glory vid. Oh yes. They don't get very many views, so that's why I stopped. Well, I stopped doing them for a few reasons, but yeah, if people like them, I can do that. Try anyway. Basically, the reason I stopped doing is because Games Workshop stopped sending me advanced copies of, like, physical books. PDFs, which is great, and I appreciate it because I don't have library space for all these books. But at the same time, they don't want me screen sharing, and that's kind of how I've done the Path to Glory stuff before. So I just need to come up with a new way of sharing that info, and we'll get to it. Okay, so we got those. I want those wings to dry for just a hot sec. So, with that said, let's pick out... Let's start with some bone. I think that sounds good. Path of Glory is the best part of AOS. Oh, well, that's good to hear. See you later, Hugh. Has the Stormcast ever fought each other? You know, I can't think of a specific story where they do. Okay. Tell me your thoughts on this. I always felt it was very awkward, the idea of Stormcast fighting themselves, because at least with Stormcast, not Stormcast, with Space Marines, like the Imperium is so big, and the way that they pledge themselves to different houses, you know, parties, whatever, crusades, it just naturally lends a lot of reasons for them to conflict with one another, or at least their interests, or you know, things they've promised. But I feel like the Stormcast don't do that quite as well, just because narratively they're all kind of like much more on the same page. At least from what I've seen. I mean, you know, I don't feel like we've had a lot of stories where they conflict. Had stories where they don't like each other, which is fair. You show me someone who loves all of their coworkers, and I will show you a liar. But nothing quite as like raising swords against one another. Let's do a quick scan for more bones. Cool. I always see Stormcast versus Stormcast as combat maneuvers. Very reasonable. Yeah, I mean that's always like a great narrative lever to pull on, right? Training missions and that kind of stuff. And Space Marines definitely do that too. I just feel like I wish we had more stories of Crusades pulling like, factions apart. You know, like we get a little bit of that in Dawnbringers, and hopefully it continues. Of like people in Giran being like, "This is bull." Why are we sending so many people out to die and leaving ourselves defenseless? But they do it because they're told to. But I like that idea of inner faction drama. I think is a lot of fun. Doing right now is just blocking out the bones, and I'm going to go back with a few different kinds of brown, like contrast to like add some variety. But we're just kind of blocking stuff out right now, just so we can kind of see where all the detail lies. Here. Gotta love teenage dirtbag. Oh, DW, thank you so much. I'm so sorry, I did not see that. Thanks for the content, Doug. Nice to have some chill hobby time after a local AOS tournament on Saturday. Oh, I would love to hear about your AOS tournament. Also, my friend, I hope you know the rules. You threw a tip in the tip jar, so we can talk about anything that you would like, DW. Throw us out a topic. I will wax poetically on it. Will they ever add ruination chamber units? Yes, I'm sure that when sales are down, the chambers will open. No, I just mean like, you know, whenever they're ready to expand or push forward or whatever that next kind of arc is. But yeah, you're talking about the big like Stormcast chamber map or whatever. I'd imagine so. Just gonna have to wait for a dramatic enough moment to pull that trigger. Still waiting on what is Ruination Chamber. So that is, we don't really know much about it, but basically I haven't seen the newest one in person, but like the older Stormcast battle tomes would kind of give you an outline from a top-down view of like what a storm chamber or whatever was like. So like what the organizational structure of the Hallowed Knights is, or the Hammers of Sigmar, and it was kind of meant to be like a placeholder, I think, for the different types of leadership and roles that the army has. But essentially it's like a designation for a type of unit. So for example, before we had the Sacrosanct Chamber was listed on that same thing. Well, for the longest time we had no idea what the heck that meant, and then they opened the Sacrosanct Chamber and that was Stormcast Wizards. Same thing happened with was it the Draconith Chamber or something like that? Extremist, that's what it was. That's when we got dragon models. So they just kind of use it as like a way to unleash new types of Stormcast upon us and our meager wallets. I'm hoping that that is what Ionis is doing. He's like, well, there was some debate. Okay, there was some debate on the last what's it called? Campaign book that I did, and I can't remember, the Dawnbringers Crusade or whatever. Because after Ionis left a battle with Tzeentch people, 9 souls were missing, and people were like, "Oh man, that's a Tzeentch number right there. That's a Tzeentch." And but Ionis is being weird. I don't like it. I don't trust it. I don't trust priests. That keyword is scary. Hi, my name's Doug. Made a couple of Stormcasts that are delusioned with Sigmar. Or disillusioned, I see his name. And then Tyrant is because they were abandoned by him. I love it. I think it depends on how much depth they want to add to Sigmar. And I actually had this discussion with a few folks on Reddit. They were essentially saying like, oh, this is why AOS is boring, because it's just a copy paste of 40k. Sigmar is the emperor. And I kind of pushed back on that. I was like, no. He is, because Games Workshop hasn't made him anything else. But the fact that he is alive and in the realms and able to do things and make decisions and change his mind, and people can react to him, like getting disillusioned or whatever, that makes him wildly different than the Emperor, who can't do any of those things because he's stuck in a chair. You know what I mean? Like, his character can't go around and do stuff. It all has to come to him. And so it's, I think they just haven't taken the step to explore that. What does it look like if God himself could be like walking with your army? I don't know. I pick on Sigmar there, but that could be said of any of the deities. I don't know how I got there. I was rambling there for a while. 3 frickin' years. Thank you so much, Wargamer Willie, dude. Oh. DW. Oh, yes, to your question. I'm just long overdue, chipping in after years of following. Oh, thank you so much. I played a Tzeentch Mortal list and really wish I threw the first game and wasn't top table. Yes, exactly. That's what I do. I'm like, I'm here. You know, I try to get a sense of my first opponent. You always want to give him a good game. I don't throw games, but like, you can definitely tell. You can definitely tell when there's that guy or gal, anyone, like that player who's just like very intense. And you know, when I see that kind of person or I get that vibe, every once in a while I'll let a few things slip. You know, like, yo, was that really a 6 or was it kind of cocked? I'll give it to you. It's a 6. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do. Beat me fast so I can go away. Let me go get a beer. And honestly, that's why I tended to play a lot of highly aggressive mobile armies for the longest time. Beast of Chaos, Bone Splitters back when I feel like they were a bit more movement aggressive. Like all these kinds of things. Because I know, as the person with that kind of list, our game's going to be over quick. I'm either going to get dumpstered or I'm going to curb stomp you. Either way, we're going to get a beer in 10 minutes. Not quite that fast, but you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of get into that mindset of, we're going to have fun or we're not going to have a game because it'll just be over, and I'm okay with that. There is no in between. But I have only ever had one experience with someone at the table where afterwards, like, I was pining to get away from them. How about that? I'll say it that way nicely. And he wasn't being rude. He was just complaining about everything. And like, so for example, he rolls dice. Let's say he gets above average, more ones than usual. He would like step back from the table to loudly proclaim how BS this is. And it got to a point where a judge was walking by while my opponent was going to get a drink or something. I said, hey, I want you to stand at this table next to me, and I just want you to listen. He hasn't done anything that I think warrants getting kicked out, but I want you to listen to the kind of experience he's giving people. And it's awkward for me, I feel, when I go to events, because everybody wants to make sure that I had a good time, which is sweet from the hosting perspective. At the same time, it's often received as like, oh man, we have to make sure Doug's having a good time, like otherwise he's gonna roast us on the internet. It's like, that's just not true. Clearly you haven't watched 2+ stuff. I don't talk about anything I don't like. But there's that idea. So I was like, no, I'm having a good time, dude. Like, I'm having a great time. I just want you to stand there. And he did. And like, sure enough, like 10 minutes into this guy coming back, he was having like a little full mini breakdown over the dice math. And then I finally just said like, hey bro, are you having fun? Because if you're not having fun, neither am I. I'm certainly not having fun with how angry you seem to be. It makes me uncomfortable. Do you want to keep playing? And he said yes. And I was like, okay then. And then I beat the crap out of him. Like in terms of the game. But yeah. Love your lo-fi music mix. Hey, thank you. I shared the link a little bit ago. You should definitely go check it out. I just like love. Lo-fi is love. Lo-fi is life. It's basically my wife and I. We work from home / every coffee shop in the tri-state area, and a lot of lo-fi makes that happen. So here we have, I was going to show you how I do the wings and stuff. This. Now, this is a thing that Bob Ross does with his oil paints. I like. Basically, we're going to dab into our base coat so it matches this. And just tap one side of the brush, the bright red, tap on the other, the kind of pastel. One dab on our matte. And now all I'm going to do is tap it to make it match the directions and lines try a different paint than that sanguine base. I haven't tried it with that. What are you? You're word bearers. We could work with that. It occurred to me that as I was mixing these two, I was like, oh, you know what? The two squirt bottles I just did. That's probably why it's not liking me too much. Doug, I believe you and I are on the opposite ends on the army spectrum. My favorite armies don't feel like the max mobility aggro armies you enjoy. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm all about. Can't quite see it from your angle, but I will, I promise, take some better shots here at the end. As you kind of flick the brush across the different wings and like different patterns and stuff, it'll just pick up naturally different tones of those two reds as you're mixing them on the brush. Ideas we're just looking for a bunch of variety. Washes and stuff, bring it all back together. We said before, that'll glaze right out. Hey Doug, in the new Flesh Eater Quartz lore, are there still ghoul kings that don't like Nagash, or do they all serve Ushrin who thinks he's serving Nagash? There are still ghoul kings who do not like Nagash at all. That much I can definitely confirm for you. Yeah, and the Ushrin thing, like, I feel like when you read the book, it's a light nudge thing. It's not this like hardcore thing where like everybody either loves Nagash or whatever. Like some of them are pretty indifferent. It's just a matter of, I'd imagine, like how Nagash fits into their specific delusion. That's what they're looking for. But no, you can still absolutely have lore for someone who doesn't give two craps about Nagash. Which I kind of think is how I'm leaning. I certainly have no interest in buying a Nagash model. I will be honest with you, I do not see myself painting the inside of these wings because also they're in shadow. So how many highlights would they have anyway? There we go. A little bit of wash and stuff. We'll bring that together. Hey Doug, what happens when two flesh eater quartz that have contrasting delusions? Do delusions combine or make a Captain Planet-esque super delusion? You know, that is actually a thing that I felt was touched on more in the previous book. It wasn't super well addressed in this one. My understanding, though, and this is just from Doug, so, you know, take it as canon as you want. My understanding is it depends on what the discrepancy is about, because I think that they want to change for each other to, like, mask one another. Or not mask one another, to assist one another, because they're not necessarily openly hostile to other undead factions. But if they see them as intruders, like let's say, for an example, one court is a crusading army and they enter the lands of a non-crusading flesh eater court. I think that's probably their interests are at odds. You can't be trespassing, right? So in that situation, I think the Ghoul King would go out, and as their realities start to mingle, I'm sure there is this awkward I think that one will start to supersede the other, but I don't think it necessarily has to happen in a way where like one is totally dominant, right? So, for example, if the lands are intruded upon, maybe at first they see them as enemies, and then once the Ghoul Kings actually like see one another and they kind of like chill out, maybe the vision changes to where, oh, these are visiting friends or a traveling carnival or something like that, and so it'll just morph naturally into the same basic situation. Someone's on your land, but now it's okay because we're okay with them, right? We've built them into the delusion, and the people who are part of that religious crusading arm, say Blisterskin, they don't need to change their worldview. They don't care. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how they're perceived. They can still think that they're crusaders, even though they're being perceived as carnies or something, you know? I don't know. I feel like that would be great fodder for a Black Library book. It's just different courts bumping into one another. I think in general it's kind of supposed to be a bit of a crapshoot just to what happens. Just doing a little bit of light brushing in this one because it is just a smidge. Unamas. Doom 407. So Doug, in the new Flesh Eater Court book, are there any new courts like the Bristlebacks you can play on the tabletop? No, and I was a little bit disappointed in that, to be honest. Especially like immediately after Cities of Sigmar added a whole bunch of new cities. Which I know not everybody was a big fan of. Like, it's like, but I think it's cool. I love it. All sub factions. Give me all of them. Anything's better than hearing people complain about Gristlegore for another 4 years. Although to be honest, I don't think Crystal Core is going to be. Well, no, I don't think they're going to be the same. I think the game has changed a lot since that list was supreme. Hey Doug, are the Fleshier Courts getting an endless spell model update? Nope. I mean, they have endless spells. But to my knowledge, I don't think any faction's gotten the second set for them personally. So, right? Am I wrong? Knowledge. Although, I will say, man, that barricade at 20 points is brutal. That's one of those ones that even I, somebody who doesn't play the game, can look at that and be like, I play the game, but I don't like stay on it at a competitive level. I'm looking at this and I'm like, that looks rough. Halves your movement, no charging or running, and if you're within a certain distance of it, just allows you to point at one side of the battlefield and be like, I don't want to worry about anything over there. That was the one thing that was immediate to me. There's some other stuff in the book that I'm like, I know that someone's gonna break this, but I'm not seeing how to do it, but somebody will figure it out. Every book has those moments, right? Where you're looking at it and like, I see the pieces, just not how they go together. Yeah, no other faction has gotten on the spells in 3rd edition, which is a shame. I would have loved to see... oh, yeah, Magakin would have been awesome. I think that would have been a wonderful faction to drop an endless spell for. I also, like, sometimes I don't understand what they're thinking, man. Like, my buddy Shu from Rerolling One's called it. Of just like, okay, so now every faction has this. That's just a whole nother set of SKUs that places now need to stock, and it just kind of seemed like it was very arbitrary ballooning of product. Even though it was cool, like, I like the idea of endless spells. It's very fun. Grab our little straps of leather here. Human leather. Of Gorgrunt of Fur. I love Gorgrunt of Fur as a color. especially for anything like rope, straps, whatever. It just kind of fills in and it has this nice little red hint to it. It goes right in and fills in gaps really well. Wildwood for his big stick. What happened to re-rolling ones? Oh, they're still around. So it is at the time of recording, December. Jack has kind of been the one kind of taking the reins of the channel for a little bit, and he works for a courier service, and so this time of year his life is just taken over. We regularly do like model swaps, but we don't even like for Christmas or whatever, but we don't even celebrate Christmas like together as friends until like February for him because he's just locked. So they're at work, I suppose is the short answer. Where's you really want? They're at work. Was Ushirin from the old world? Yes. The ogres should get endless spells, one for every type of wizard they have. James' workshop descended and gave to them 2 endless spells and said, "Be happy. Be happy I thought of you at all." Okay, making sure we should be pretty dry here because those paints were not terribly thin. So a little bit of water. Sweet. So let's grab. Druky Violet. I kind of like that. I could work with some Druky Violet. Dousing it, but we can I could see them getting 2 endless spells and an invocation of the Everwinter. Oh man, yeah, that actually would be a great thing. I would adore to see some endless prayers for specifically Beast Claw Raider part. I do feel like that is a often overlooked section of the army, and it's like, well, did they add it because they wanted it to be here, or they added it because they just got tired of updating it on its own? Well, from column A, not from column B, probably. After mixing up all those reds, just sides and just in a few center areas. Doc also has endless spells and invocations, so why not? No, absolutely not. I forgot that they had both. I also don't necessarily want every faction to have a religious angle to it. Like, I think that can be a unique storytelling device. I mean, with Beast Claw Raiders, I'm happy because they don't have a lot of support in general. But like with other stuff, I don't think every faction should have invocations. It just seems weird to have neither. I just want to say your channel is awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Tom. That is very nice to hear. It's been a rough... It's been a great weekend, but a long one. You ever have one of those where you're like, you had a great time, but you're just exhausted? We were doing some home furnishing and repairs yesterday. We were out like all day, and I was just exhausted. Anyway, point is, that was nice to hear. Thank you. Hey, Doug, good to see you. Loving the new Flesh Eater quartz? Yes. Very excited. Sweet. Okay, now the wings are going to need some time to dry. My back stretched a little bit. What is your favorite model from the new Flesh Eater Quartz roster? The Morbeg Knights. I have to, yeah. The only thing, if I could wish for one thing, right, to say, like, this army needs blank, I do wish that there was a hero option on Minibat. I don't know what to call them. But that's honestly it. Like, I'm very happy with them. I love, sorry, I'm just looking for a paint and then I'll get right back to the mic. Skeleton Horde, who's going to fill in some of those bone bits. That's the only thing I could think of, but those are by far my favorite model of the new additions that they got. What else? What is he called? The Cardinal, the priest guy. He's pretty stinking cool. I like that quite a bit. Mainly because that just really wasn't a thing that you could represent well before. Like, you could say that they were religious zealots or whatever like that, but there wasn't really much of a rules way. So I think adding that in was awesome. And their prayer lore is sick. Picking out some bits of the spine. I'm going to ignore all that like sinew stuff. I'm coming back next to get all of that. Just here for the bones. Hey Doug, I know you're not a big Star Wars fan, but you should give the Naboo Garden album a try. Oh, I I think I have listened to that. I mean, I say that I'm not a big fan. Like, I've played, first of all, I'm a huge fan of Battlefront, and they use a lot of the music. I love Star Wars Battlefront games. All of them. Well, after the riots died down about how much it cost to buy Vader, and they kind of gave up on the franchise, that's when I stepped in. I was like, oh yes. Because I played the heck out of those games when I was in high school, the OG Battlefront. Which people have asked, like, what kind of game do you want for AOS? I want that. There was a Middle-earth version of it for Lord of the Rings. I want that for Stormcast. Can you imagine how cool it would be? Like, let's say you're choosing your fighter, basic troop, Vanguard Raptors with long strikes or whatever, and then you have to, like, when your character dies, you have to choose where to arc in on lightning. Oh, but I think after the rough launch of Realm of Ruin, it'll probably be a little bit before we get ourselves a really fun AOS game. I mean, I'm having fun with that one. It's just, it seems like they expected way more of it than was reasonable. I don't know. I guess I don't know much about what they were expecting or the game company industry. It just, they said it was like less than half of the revenue they were hoping. I'm like, oh, that sounds like an accounting error, not like a this game's not that bad. But your goal might be on that unreasonable. I don't know. I've been running around so much I haven't had a chance to play. Although I am going to, I think, flip the difficulty to easy because I want to power through the story and do a lore video on it really badly. But my skills are not up to snuff. Put it mildly. I also sent them an email. It's like, hey, I'd still like to talk about this game, and I would love it if I could get like a level designer to interview me, and we could talk about like how to use the builder and make unique missions and that kind of stuff. And no one's gotten back to me yet, so we'll see. Maybe they're emotionally done with it. I love the Lord of the Rings conquest. Yeah, right. Isn't it so stinking fun? Because there was this idea that like Battlefield games only work with guns and stuff like that. It's like, that's just not true, man. As long as you make the melee fighting, interesting, people will do whatever. I feel like they generally did it enough. There's enough nuance to the dodges and that kind of stuff. Realm of Ruin looks cool, but needs to get... Oh, but I need to get a better computer. Yeah. Who doesn't love OG Battlefront? The one thing I got real sad about when they took it out of the game was that flying battles and ground battles are now separate, which I understand why they did for the purposes of online play. I just really miss the days where you could like bomb rush for the TIE bomber on the Kashyyyk map and then just strafe the entire battlefield. Ah, it's beautiful. Mainly because the computer never would, because they were cowards. But I found I like arbitrary completion things. Like I like when it's like kill, win 50 games with this weapon and you unlock a skin or something. Sucker for those just because they're just fun little things. I like having micro goals like that. But once I achieved all those things on the newer Battlefront, I was like, meh. Kind kind of felt the same way about Fallout 76. Once I finished all of the Scouts quest, I was like, I'm ready to go. We're going to do a similar thing to what we did before. Pick out guys who have like muscles being ripped through. There's like sinew and stuff showing. You nerds. Okay, cool. Age of Empires 3 was my bag when I was a teenager. Oh yeah. Age of Mythology I always enjoyed because of the awful voice acting. I loved. Oh my gods, it's Poseidon, and it's like the crappiest pixelated version of like a seahorse coming at you. Bro, Odysseus, you scared of that? You gotta talk, man. You ain't the hero of this story that you think you are. Just want to have a little bit of that kind of torn muscle effect. Up here, not a ton. So 2 questions, Doug. All right. First, do you have any off-white painting recipes? So I'll start there. I do, actually. If you go look on my Instagram and you go back far enough, you'll see my Knights Excelsior. They are off-white. They are a cold white, too. So the way that I love painting white is you can either prime it with Gray Seer, or I like, if you're doing with a paintbrush, prime with a brush, always do Gray Seer. Was another good one. Celestar Gray. That's what I'm trying to say. If you start with Celestar Gray, that's where I normally start, and then I build up brighter from there. And so, most of how I paint white is Celestar Gray in your recesses and shadows, Ulthuan Gray on top of that, and then your very sharpest highlights, just white. Just whatever white you like to use. Only on the sharpest ones. That's how I have found to have the most success. Okay, and second, have you seen the upcoming Conquest releases, specifically the 5th anniversary redo of the Spire's Abomination? My good friend, I have one on my shelf. Yes, with all the craziness of the holidays, I haven't had a chance to sit down and do that video, but I intend to this week. Yeah, their new like Siege Behemoth or whatever it's called. I can't remember. They all have such crazy names. Every game company has crazy names for their units, but it's breathtaking. If you guys have not seen it, it is a creature that is amazing to behold. it's just one of those other reminders that it's like, man, GW, you're not the only kids on the market anymore. When it comes to super good, high quality models. Which honestly is kind of why I feel like Games Workshop should lean into the internal kit bashing thing, right? If somebody buys a box of Games Workshop product, wouldn't they be so much more incentivized to do that over and over again if, like, every time they did it, very actively enriched their options for modeling and hobbying? But they don't really seem to be going that way. They seem to go in the direction of only having model kits for the exact things that we want to make money on, and I understand that. All the litigation with the lawsuits. But it just seems silly to me. It seems very short-sighted. Technology is going to outdate you, so why fight it? Be smart. Set trends. Stop falling. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about what Games Workshop should do. I'm sorry about that. Don't know where that came from. Siegebreaker Behemoth. Yes. Hey Doug, are you making your Crypt guard have swords or halberds? I went swords as much as possible because I just like the... sorry, no wait. I went halberds. There we go. As much as possible. Because they reminded me of the ghoul character that you can get from the Mordheim City of the Damned game. Like, they look like the dudes covering that stuff, and it's awesome. Just working in some consecutive brighter colors, yeah, just to kind of fill it out. Oh, his whole arm just popped out. Oh, I guess he wasn't glued all that well. Give me one sec. Actually, he's the one who has his arms all wrapped up backwards, whatever, so that's probably... We'll just put him off to the side. It makes it easier to get to the inside of his wing anyway. So that's fine. We're gonna let those dry. Got some Ogren camo. We're just gonna go pick some of these weird boils and whatever they got going on with something a little bit brighter / different. Glad to hear it. I really want that new abomination because I hated having to pose my first... Oh, yeah. The custom City of Sigmar color scheme will be purple, primary, blue, gray, secondary, and off-white. Honestly, that'll work really well. The recipe I gave you, the Celestra Gray and Ulthuan Gray, because they are cold whites, and if you're going with a white blue kind of a thing, I think it'll look real sharp with them. Ever played Deep Rock Galactic? I have never heard of this game. What do you do? What is it about? There we go. Need the detail push. Does anybody have any good game recommendations for the Switch? I just finished Super Mario Spark of Hope with my last addiction. sort of like a Mario XCOM style. I found it a bit too easy, to be honest with you, and I don't mean that like I cranked the difficulty, I had it all. I found that once you really mastered movement and jumping, there was no challenge left in the game, which is unfortunate. Some of these guys have more of a back I can dry brush on rather than having to do all these. Okay. Rock and Stone. Deep Rock Galactic is like comical Leagues of Votan fighting Tyranid-like creatures with a bunch of objectives. Ooh, but is it like is it a strategy game, first-person shooter? Like, what's the what am I playing? Evening, Doug. I enjoying your Flesh Eater Court vids. Oh, thank you so much, Gasman. Great to see you again. Anyone go any fun events recently? Win or lose, doesn't matter. I'm hoping to take some of these boys out to game night this Thursday, but we'll see. Waiting for some news from family to know what's up, how my week's gonna look. Ooh. Class-based first-person shooter. Oh! And that's on Switch, really? I don't know why I'm surprised. It just kind of sounds like one of those games that, like, I'm always a little surprised at what fun stuff makes it to Switch. It's always kind of a crapshoot if a game will be there. I had an event for ages. If I'm going to try to do the one you take Belthanos. Nice. That sounds pretty dang cool. Got a double tournament soon? Nice. I've never heard of Deep Rock Galactic. I am so out of the loop with video games. You know that meme? I don't see it anymore because it's gone. But Internet Explorer, like being like way behind on everything. I am that way with video games. I am the guy who's like, hey guys, you're not gonna believe this. Did you hear that Blizzard thought people were excited for the new Diablo game, and so they just released a mobile version? Right? Like, I'm that guy. It was like, yeah, bro, that happened like 8 years ago. And then this guy with a red shirt or backpack or whatever gets up there. Sweet. Okay, so what's next? Honestly, I think everything kind of needs a bit to rest, including my voice. Do you guys not have phones? Yes, exactly. It turns out, everybody, no one in the audience had a phone. Oh, man. But yes, that is my ability to keep up with with the goings on of life where it's just like, my friends are coming this weekend. I'm going to play some Warhammer. Haven't been able to get any events or shop games in. Nice. Nice. For events, I've got one in July like last year, but if it doesn't run AOS 4.0, I'll be bringing my Disciples of Tzeentch. Want it to be Lumineth, but I don't know if I finish them. I get it, man. Lumineth models there's so much detail. It's a lot. I understand. That's why I stick to the simple armies where you can prime at one color and be done. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. We got quite a bit done. These guys are not terribly long. I have to do, the junk on the hands and the nails, and then obviously a little bit of finer detail up here on the back. I'm going to add like the Nurgle snot or whatever, just to stuff to make it look gross on their backs, since that's mostly what you see from the top of the table. But once I get the bases painted black and they actually like pop off the base visually, I think I'm going to be quite happy with these dudes. So I'm going to keep poking around at them, and I'll be sharing my progress with you as I go. So anyway, friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me this fine morning. I look forward to hanging out with you throughout the week as we continue.